So that's all 32 teams not participating this upcoming weekend. And how we've been doing, again, these previews with our quick picks. We start with the ranked section. Here are the ranked teams going into week 5 from your Sports Outpost. Let's dive in. Let's start at that top left corner. That's Ohio State facing Washington. In Seattle, the Buckeyes are favored by 8 points. And it's actually been steady there, and I was kind of surprised. Ohio State's defense, one of the best in the country. Kind of makes no sense on why they're only 8-point favorites. It's a little, so again, of an eyebrow raiser. I think they're going to be able to more than cover. Washington struggled against Colorado State. I know they've kind of somewhat improved. But yeah, this is the Ohio State. They're going to go into Seattle and absolutely mop up the Washington Huskies for sure. So I believe they're going to be covering that 8-point line that has been set this upcoming weekend. Alabama, Georgia. Second time we're talking about them on the stream. Again, we're going Georgia. If you want to know why, you can go back to the beginning. I think it's our second game we previewed. Or check out our clips over on YT. Oregon versus Penn State. We're going with the Ducks on the road. We also told you why. As that's the 6th meeting between the two. Penn State favored by 3.5 points. We don't care. We're still going Ducks. Indiana heads over to Iowa City to take on the Hawkeyes. Nice road test for the Hoosiers after that big win at home against Illinois. If I'm not mistaken, Iowa had a bye last week, so they should be nice and fresh. Maybe they somewhat changed their offense approach. Probably not. Indiana, beginning of the week, were 7-point favorites. Now it has moved up to 7.5. So it looks like people are very high on the Hoosiers, just like us. That's why we're going with Indiana. Not because of the line, but we're getting a little bit high on those. Again, Kirk Chignetti, Indiana boys. LSU heads over to Oxford, Mississippi. Another game we did a pretty deep preview of to start off the stream. A minus 2.5-point favorites to begin the week for the home team. It is now dropped down to minus 1.5 for the 114th Magnolia Bowl, as I can barely get that out. We're going Ole Miss. We talked about it in depth again in the beginning of the stream. Check that out, or head over to YT to watch the clips. Auburn versus Texas A&M. We have a top 25 matchup. A ton of them this upcoming weekend, it feels like. And quality ones as well. Auburn got pretty burned last week. That's why we still have them there in the top 25. They didn't move far back from their position going into week 4. Number 21 versus number 8. We're still, though, not going to, unfortunately, pick them. Because we love ourselves some Texas A&M Aggies. Mike Elko should be doing a decent job there in preparing his defense. And again, A&M, we're going with them. They're 6.5-point favorites. It's a pretty interesting line. I actually think might cover. Arizona heads over to Ames, Iowa to take on the Cyclones. Iowa State. The line has been going down from the beginning of the week. 6.5-point favorites now moved down to 6. I thought that was pretty interesting. Both the teams are undefeated. And it's the first meeting between the two since 1968. So it's pretty interesting to see a lot of first time in a while matchups here in the new Big 12. We're going to go with the home team, Iowa State. They're not putting up any crazy stat. They aren't really blowing out teams, but what they know how to do is get themselves into a fight and figure out how to win it. We think the Cyclones are going to be able to do that, regardless of that line dropping since its initial start during the week. Let's go Iowa State. And again, we only use those lines to help us kind of give us an indicator of who is actually maybe going to win, especially with people putting their own hard-earned money on the line. Again, it's just an indicator of where things might go. BYU heads over to Boulder, Colorado to take on the Primetime Puss. 6.5 point favorites for BYU. We're very high on their defense. They are just one of the scariest teams when that side of the ball comes out on the field. They showed it last week in absolutely dragging ECU. I know it wasn't a pretty scoreline, but the reason why ECU didn't do much of anything was because of that amazing defense coming out of Provo. And then again, Bear Bachmeier continuing to develop with that a great run offense with, again, the offensive line and the guys that he hands the ball off to. You just had to put a lot of respect, like we have been doing, to the BYU Cougars, and that's why we are picking them. The line is 6.5. I thought that was a little disrespectful for BYU, even going into Boulder. They already beat this team in the Alamo last year, and when you think about it, like all the players that would have made maybe that game close, which it wasn't, it kind of makes no sense of why the line's only 6.5. I would say they're going to more than cover. This might be a double-digit possession or point win, not possession. That would be kind of crazy. But double-digit points, I would say, for BYU winning there on the road. A very interesting one. This is a weeknight game. That's Florida State heading over to Charlottesville to take on the Cavaliers of Virginia. Number 13 here at your Sports Outpost. Going to be an interesting test for the Seminoles. They're minus 7.5 point favorites. We're going with them because of what they have already shown us so far this season. But we do like Virginia. They only have one loss. They kind of blew it against NC State. I don't think they're going to have much of a chance here again against the Seminoles. But 7.5 point favorites. Maybe we see a close game early. But Florida State should be pulling away there on the road. Up next, we got UMass heading down to Columbia, Missouri to take on the Tigers. Missouri. They have been on a nice roll here. Number 16 here at your Sports Outpost. I thought this was a crazy line that I saw. 44.5 point favorites. They definitely blew out UMass there last year when they went up to visit the Minutemen. Looks like they will not have enough Minutemen this upcoming weekend. Let's go. Yeah, for sure, Missouri. The line of minus 44.5, I actually think they might cover, which is pretty crazy to say. Tennessee heads down to Starkville, Mississippi to take on the Bulldogs of Mississippi State. Let's go with Tennessee. Number 17 here at your Sports Outpost. They will be handing Jeff Lebby and his Bulldogs their first L of the season. Again, minus 7.5 points. Thought that was a pretty interesting line. I think they're going to be more than able to cover. There is a lot of speed that Mississippi State has, and that's why they beat Arizona State earlier this season. That might be actually a weak point for Tennessee, but the real challenge is keeping up with Joey Aguilar and Josh Heupel's very, very lethal offense, which I don't think Mississippi State will have in them. So let's go Tennessee. Utah State heads over to Nashville to take on Vanderbilt for the first time. Number 19 here at your Sports Outpost. We like ourselves some Commodores. We're obviously picking them. I think the line's pretty large. Will they cover? I actually think so. The Utah State didn't do so well against Texas A&M earlier in the season. In that blowout, did start off decently well, but here Vanderbilt is just making a lot of noise, and we'll see if it continues after this weekend. Georgia Tech heads over to take on Wake Forest on the road. The Yellow Jackets also undefeated, and why they're at number 20 here in the country, here at your Sports Outpost. Again, we're going to take the Yellow Jackets. Wake Forest has been pretty bad, even though I think it was last week where it was a pretty close game. We almost got it wrong, if I'm not mistaken. But Georgia Tech, Coach Key should be getting the job done there and getting another ACC win. I was looking at their schedule. They don't play Miami or Florida State. So it looks like they will be punching their ticket most likely, as they actually have the easiest path to Charlotte, North Carolina to compete for an ACC title later on here in 2025. Utah heads over to West Virginia to take on the Mountaineers there in Morgantown. We're going to go with the Utes. I think they're going to be able to bounce back after a tough loss to Texas Tech. Minus 10.5 point favorites to begin the week. That has now risen to minus 12.5 points for the visitors. And yeah, I think they might actually be able to cover. I know West Virginia beat Pitt, but they really have not been a good team. But also, Utah doesn't really blow out teams. It really depends on the defense and how they set up the offense with field position. But I wouldn't be surprised. They've technically have blown out, power conference foes in UCLA. I would actually say West Virginia is closer to that than a competitive team there in the Big 12, as they got blown out by Kansas last week there in Lawrence. So they maybe they're gonna get blowout again there at home, as it's not a good start to the Rich Rod second era. As we keep moving, we have Memphis heading down to Florida Atlantic to take on the Owls. Give us Memphis. That's just an easy dub. Oh, at least it should be on paper. Yeah, they had a great performance in that comeback win against Arkansas. You really like to see that kind of grit in a program, and they seem to be on a nice roll here as well in 2025. Again, let's go Memphis. The final game on the slide, it's a pretty interesting one. USC heads over to Champaign, Illinois to take on the Fighting Alumni. We previewed this game in the offseason. We decided not to do it because of the unknowns that Illinois showed us last week against Indiana. You don't like to see those kind of score lines. Also, we kind of don't know how good USC is. So that's kind of why we stayed away from the in-depth preview. But we're still going with the team that we have put a lot of stock in, especially from this past offseason. We think they're going to be able to hopefully be a little bit more physical than they were against Indiana. USC is favored by 7 points. That has now dropped down to 6.5. I don't think they're obviously going to cover because we are going to go Illinois. I think this is going to be a nice slugfest between the two, as USC has not been good against non-West Coast Big Ten teams in general. They just got their first win against Purdue when they made a trip to Indiana. Got the win there in Lafayette, but here in Champaign, we don't think they're going to get the job done. Yeah, that is our top 25 teams. Let us know who you got. If you're a fan of any of those teams, hit that thumbs up button. And yeah, also we are going to do our watch along here on Rumble for Oregon against Penn State. Don't forget it. We'll be on that front page if you do miss us for some reason. And that is our top 25 teams.